coming on and giving your time to talk about your career. How are you getting on?
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm just so excited to be in your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So am I. And maybe you can start off by just introducing yourself and what your current role is.
Yes, of course. My name is Alejandra Altúzar, and I'm right now CEO at ALAMO Seguros. We work at the insurance business for a long time. My company has 38 years in the market, and we are currently having at least 200 agents selling our product and 110 employees working with us. So I'm really proud of our company. My company starts with my father. I didn't make it at the beginning, so I'm really so proud to work for them.
Amazing. And I didn't know it started with your father. So we'll definitely go back to that in a minute. But one question I haven't been asking on this podcast, and someone told me maybe it would be a good question to ask, seems as it's a career focused podcast for younger people. But could you tell us what a day in the life of a CEO at Alamo Seguros looks like?
Well, I think it's look like any other one. Like we start early, of course. We have to start early. We have a plan. We have an agenda. We have to talk with many kind of people, employees, agents, people who need our product, people who has trouble with our product. Not everything is nice. Not everything is happening well. We have to solve many problems with people, especially people who is not currently feeling well with what we're doing with the team. And we have also to think a lot. A CEO has to make plans, has to think in strategy, has to think on the future, not only the present. So I think our most important part of being CEO is to think how are you going to live your role when you're gone. So you have to prepare all the structure, all the people you need, all the finance you need. And I think that's the most important part of our role.
That's very interesting. And a lot of younger people, their ambition, right, is to the end goal would to become CEO of a company which you are. And I suppose to fast forward for them, what is it that you really enjoy about being a CEO? And maybe you could
I,
also tell me what's the biggest challenge as
I
well.
think in my specific role, I have enjoyed to know all the parts of my company because I started with my father. So I started being all the things you can imagine, to clean the office, to uh, turn up the papers into trash, and to uh, all, I think to make all the roles everybody doesn't want to have, you know? To shut the door down, to open the door, to open the window, to help people. So I think if you really want to tell people about what they have to do, you have to know because it's
Yeah.
so difficult sometimes to make people understand what they have to do if you don't feel it or if you don't know it. It doesn't mean you have to know all the roles in the organization, of course. It's very difficult for some people to think about it. But in my specific role, I really enjoy to know all that because now I can understand people and what they're doing. So I think it's very important for a person who wants to be a CEO to understand what other people are feeling, to understand what other people in your team are trying to get in the mission or vision or objectives you have. So I think you have to involve with all they are living every day.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think that's probably regardless of industry or business, isn't it? It's kind of a CEO of anything. That's kind of very good advice. And what's the biggest challenge then, would you say?
I think the biggest challenge is to understand that you can have the role, you can have the name of CEO, but once you get there, You need to be prepared to continue growing, to continue studying, to continue professionalizing your role and the role of the people you have with you. Because if you think that only because of you have the name, everybody's going to follow you or going to understand what you want, it's not the truth. You have to inspire people to follow you. You have to make them want to follow you. And that's the biggest challenge you have.
Brilliant, brilliant. And you said your dad founded the company. So was it always destined out for you, even as a young woman, that you were going to go into the business? Was it always your intention, or what was your thinking when you were in school, for example?
No, my first idea when I was at university, I don't want to be with my father. I don't want to work with him. I want to have my own company. I want to be a consultant. I studied finance and administration, so I have another idea. But I think my father's first idea was the opposite one. No, I want her to be in the company. I want her to be with me, but he didn't make me to do it. I think he was so brilliant at that. We only combine our ideas at the lunch, breakfast, and supper. So I think he made it so easy for me to want to be there. Uh, he told me someday, do you want to help me with this? And do you want to help me with that? And I think you can come with me today and help me with these things and with other things. And that's the way I understand the company. I understand what he wanted. I understand also that it was important for him because it was his dream. So when I understand that and I think, okay, I like this business. I know another ones. I work with another ones a very few times, but this was really amazing. And I thought at that time, okay, I don't want to be with my father, but I want to be in the business. So what I have to do is to understand what we are doing, to understand what they are working with. And I think little by little time, I understand that that was also my dream, that was also what I wanted to do. And now I am really uh, proud of what I am doing there.
Yeah, it's such an inspiring story, because so you're saying there was no through gentle nudging over time, but it must have been fascinating for you to watch your dad develop his dream as a young woman, watching him do that. That must have been very inspiring, and to be successful as well.
Of course, because that's the spirit of the people who uh, uh, it's an entrepreneur who wants to really follow his dream, and it's not easy. I lived that dream at the other part, like the part of the family that is really of watching what's happening with that dream. It's not easy to start. It's not easy to think, okay, well, we are going to make this thing happen, and now everybody's going to be smiling at that dream. That doesn't happen. I saw my
Mm.
mother having some trouble some days. I saw my sister that didn't want to be here because we started at the capital, the big city, Mexico City. We born there, and then my father starts the company in some other place. So we didn't know anybody. We didn't think that it would be so difficult for us. But when we saw the results and you saw people work and you saw the businesses growing and we're helping more people and we're trying to reach more objectives, more high objectives, I think that's the thing, that's the way my father inspired us to be first person who wanted to follow their dreams and then to follow his own dream.
And from your first-hand experience, Alejandra, what does it take to become a successful entrepreneur? Like, what does it mean to follow your dream, set up a business, and be successful? What does that really take? Because a lot of people have that dream. Most people don't pursue it. some will and most won't be successful. But you've seen that small percentage of people that break through and are. What does it take?
You have to understand that you can't listen everybody, because most of the people, it's going to tell you you can't do it and it's difficult to do it and you will have so many trouble. You can listen to them. There's so many little part of the near people you have that it's going to encourage you to do it. So don't listen to people. Follow your dreams. Follow your instinct. If you can do it. I'm sure you can do it. It's not easy because uh, some days you will find everybody saying you no, 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 and you're inside are feeling yes, I can, but everybody's feeling that I can't do it. So don't listen to them. Just do it.
Yeah, it's not said often enough. I couldn't agree more. I think it's great advice. And so you said then you did finance and administration in college. Talk a little bit about the decision to do that, and how were your college years and how did they form your early professional career into the family business?
I really love business. I'm so interested, and I really fascinating thing to find how all companies in different ways are like people. They are growing. They have some internal organs that are engaging with each other to work with an objective in common. And since I was very young, I really enjoy reading about companies and their development. So I think the way I found to follow all the companies was to study finance and administration. And as I said before, I wanted to be a consultant, no? To be in with everyone who needs to be help some way with their companies in human resources or finance or marketing. No? But I really believed at that time that we can help every company at every place with the size which they have. But I realized too that many of that companies we saw with big names are really monsters,
Mm.
real big monsters. And that big monsters are not the same ones that you are going to know where you are studying or where you're working at first time. It's very difficult for young people to understand that because they want to work with the big ones
Yeah.
at the time they are starting their career or finishing their career. So at that time, understanding that makes me understand too that my father's company had some issues that you won't find in other companies too. So when you understand that a very little one company with 2, 3, 10, 15, or 20 people can be as interesting as a
Mm.
one, it's a time you can understand what you are trying to reach with your career, and that you can put a little bit, I can say that, of your own purpose in these
Yeah.
little big companies and make a better future for the place you live first, and then the city you live, and then the state, and then the country. So I think for young people, I think it's not going to be their big objective now, because generations have changed a lot. To have
Mm.
a work or to have a place on that big companies, think on the little ones. I think that that's the one thing make me to understand that that was my dream and that was the career I wanted to follow.
Yeah. And so is it fair to say that even at that young age, then for you, that the values of what a company could bring, as well as the experience, was part of the motivation for you? And is that something that's been maintained for you throughout the rest of your career, sort of the core values of what the company is doing?
Yes, of course. And I think one of the most important issues you have to understand is that companies are made of people.
Mm.
They are made of the people who work for that company. Yes, you have processes, yes, you have money, yes, you have ideas, but the most important part of the companies are the people, and values are put on people. So if you understand what's the people mean of or the life of that people of that team is working with you or with the company, you can make the values of the company work together and really understand what they're made of and what are they following or trying to reach.
Yeah, brilliant. And so you talked a little bit earlier that you did a variety of different roles from day one. Can you take us through the different areas of the business that you worked in? What was the first challenge that you had, or not challenge, the first role?
The first role was as my dad's secretary. Imagine that, no? With his desk full of papers and saying me, Dad, what's this? And why do you have this in this corner of your desk? And why do you have this in this part of the office? And he has a very structured way of thinking in their things, the things that they were doing every day. So these letters are in this corner because I want to grab them ready and fast. And these things are on that table because I don't need it every day. I just need it once a month. And to understand how people organize their work is fascinating because not everybody thinks the same. So I had to understand the way he worked to really help him. That was my first work with his desk and his papers, and to understand in what place I should put the one letter he really need, and in another place the one he really doesn't need. And then once I started to read papers, I started to understand the business. I understand that not only to redact or to read, it's the function you have to follow. I started to understand and to investigate now that how this letter is going to impact people there. How are they going to follow this issue with this letter, and what happens next? So next step, I was following all the administration and finance and at the company. Because of this work, I learned through organization paper. It's been a really enjoying path I have followed with.
Brilliant. And of all if you look back over your whole career in the company, was there one particular role before you became CEO of the company? Was there one particular role you enjoyed the most, that you look back most fondly and say, "Oh, that was the period I loved the most"? Or are you in it now?
When my father started the company, it was only his person. It was not constructed as how do you say it, as an enterprise or a company legally set. So in insurance sector, we have a figure that it's called the agent or the enterprise agent or company agent. And to have this figure legally figure, you have to make a process to have papers and some, it's called, I don't think if you have it like in that where you live, but it's like some kind of authorization of the authority we have here in Mexico to regulate all the insurance sector. So to transform the company to being just one people making the face of the company, to have now a company legally established with an authorization and with all the contracts you need, it was very challenging for me, because my father said, okay, you want really to have this as a company? Okay, it's in your hands to do it. So you have to investigate how are you going to make the authorization, what papers you need, what are the next steps, what's the kind of issues where having to process with our team to change all the processes we're having at that time, and now the new ones, to have accountability, to have some finance specialists to make all this happen. How many money do you need to make this happen? And do we have it on the bank account? It was really a challenge for me because we didn't have any money. So we needed to start with that, no? To make a loan with the bank and to make all these getting structured. And it takes me like 1.5 years to have it accomplished.
Wow. So a lot of very interesting, very challenging, but I assume stressful
Yes,
as
of
well. Yeah.
and imagine the stress not only because of the work, so because of you're working with a person who is your leader, or is your CEO, but is your father too.
Yeah.
So, and in some many ways, he could tell me, I want to do this because I'm the CEO. And in other way, it's I want to do this and you will have to do it because I'm your father. No, so it's not very easy to say your father, I think you're wrong. You can
Yeah.
say that to a person who is working with you in any kind of company, but to say your father, you think you're wrong or he's wrong, it's not very easy.
It's not easy, I'm sure. And have I'm maybe going on a bit of a tangent, but have you any advice for young people who are thinking about entering the family business? Maybe they're thinking, I'm not going to do it like you did in the early days, and but they're not sure. What advice would you give to them?
I think they should try because
Mm,
they are only thinking in the company because of the issues they have as a family. And it's not the same. Of course, when you are at the family business, challenges are bigger, challenges are different. But I think they have to give a chance to that business because it's the most part of that business is constructed or based on love.
mm,
And I think that's a very good value that we have been lost in many actual companies. And when you, well, I think the most part of the companies and the big companies we know were based on the family business at the first time, of course. But when you have the opportunity to know the your family, your own family business, I think you can also have in your mind the idea of, okay, if I really like it, I can afford here, I can do a career here, I can make the business grow, I can make this business make everything I want. But you also have to understand that if it's not your dream, it's better if you know the business and then you follow your own dream, because it's not fair for a business that it's based on love, that if you know it's not your dream, to betray the values of that company just because you don't have any other option, or you think that you owe your family that place or your family owes you that place, and just be there not feeling comfortable or not feeling loved with the company or not feeling that it's your place. You have to be really, really sincere with you and follow your own instinct.
that's really nicely said. I like that. Um, you said we talked a little bit. Obviously, there was lots of. If you look back over 30 years career in the company, there's been lots of kind of stressful times, I'm sure, challenging times that like everybody will have. When you look at your career, I suppose I've two questions. The first one is when you've been challenged in those stressful times, what tips or advice would you give people, or how do you handle it? How do you kind of get over those and move forward? And the second question, which is slightly related, is you talk about, being sincere with yourself about what you want to do. And as you go through a career, of course, there's times when you're not sure, do I change? Do I go into a different role? Do I leave? Have you had those sort of moments as well? And how did you navigate those?
Well, I think we have to tell all young people who is going on this role or in this challenge. The stress is always there.
Mm.
You're not being able to get rid of it, or if you think stress it's going to finish next week, no, because next week you have a next challenge, and then the stress will appear again, and it's different. So you have to understand that all these stress situations are gonna end sometime, but there are gonna be new ones to begin with, some different stress and some different challenges. So if you are uh, aware of that, you are understanding that's the kind of things are consequences, or to have a business or being in a business or in a role. Any role you think in a company has some kind of a stress, has some kind of frustration too, because sometimes if you are making some um, project, or if you are working with some team, frustration is always there, because not everyone thinks like you think. Not no, you can't think that the project is going to end the way you think, at the time you think, and everything you think. You need to understand that on the way there's going to be some kind of decisions you will have to make, to understand that if that time you have to change something, to think different on something, and maybe the result is going to be better, much better than you think before.
Very good, very good. You also, another thing that comes to mind nowadays, like within not just big corporations, but across all companies, all industries, even in sort of life in general, it's all about well-being, right? That's kind of a topic, and I'm fascinated by it myself. I have a huge interest in it. But I'm just thinking again, a family business, entrepreneurship, work-life balance. Is it always there? How do you handle that? Because everybody needs it, I suppose, but it must be. Is it more of a challenge?
Yes, it's a big decision you have to understand, because all that balance you see on TV and that you see on a big convention, when they are always telling you have to balance your life and have your own time and vacation time and family time. It's very nice when you see it just there, but when you're leaving the role of having something different for you and for your business, you have to understand that some days, some weeks, or some months, you're going to have to sacrifice something,
Hmm.
because you need to have this time to put it all together to make your dream come true. But if you really understand that that sacrifice will have for you some very beautiful moments on the future, a near future and a medium future and a long-term future, you will do it really, really thinking that it's the right thing to do at that time. I passed through that. No, I have two children. Well, they are big adults now, and I have two granddaughters now, but the time that take me to understand the business and to make all these projects I said to you, and this transformation and becoming a CEO and working with my dad, makes me sacrifice some time with my children,
Hmm.
and to tell them how we need to understand that these times will going to be better in the future, and now we're living it, and they have new opportunities because they studied at the university they wanted, and they lived the life they wanted. And I think that's the very important thing to do when you are understanding that this sacrifice will have you better things on the future. But you need to understand that that balance, it's not happening day by day. You
Yeah.
can't think today I'm going to be sometime working and sometime watching TV and sometime with my family and sometime with me. There are gonna be weeks that it's not going to be like that, but there are some weeks that maybe you are not even going to work. So
Yeah.
it's different. The
Yeah.
balance you can find when you understand that kind of the well-being thing, it's very different, but you can do it. Yes, you can do it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And what I liked about what you said there, you know, work-life balance, it's always been my experience as well. It comes and goes. There are times when you feel like you've got it, and then there can be 6 months where it disappears completely. But even on that kind of entrepreneurial side, it's even having the people around you understand that, and them knowing in its own ways is hugely helpful. So I like the way you said that as well. And how is as your career has gone on, and maybe you've kind of answered this already, but how has your view of your own career changed, or your priorities or your motivations changed from when you were starting off to maybe, 10 years in to now being top of the tree and running the company? How has that changed for you?
I think like most of people, we have life moments. So
Mm,
at the beginning, my big objective was to learn and to know and to continue growing and to understand more and more and more of the business. Then I started to understand it and to think, how are we going to make it grow? How are we going to make some different things? How our big ideas can become true and can make this business looks different. And once you have achieved that and you have different business and ideas come true, now you have to understand, you have to consolidate that business, because we want all, I think all we want is that our business continue generation by generation. So now I am right in that moment of consolidation of the business, on really being aware of what are we going to face on the future and prepare the company for those things that that economy, politics, well, health issues like the COVID, that we didn't think, nobody think that they are really going to happen. But we have learned of that experience, that we have to prepare ourselves and companies to face all the things that come on the future, anything they come. It's not easy, because at the point that you understand that you have to stop sometimes of making new ideas, to consolidate first the ones you have put on that business, and then once consolidated, you have to think of new ideas for the future. And you have to understand too that you are not going to be eternally on that role. You have to prepare people to follow you. You have to prepare more leaders. You have to be aware of what the people you're working with have to know of the business, how to understand the business, and need to have all the capacities and attitudes they need to follow your role, or to follow roles that they really want to have on the company in a biggest level. You have to move once in a time to think, okay, who's the next person who's going to be in my role? And really, it's not really easy to think that, because you always saw at your side, no, he doesn't have this, no, she is not prepared, no, maybe she needs something else. But you have to think that at the time that you were in that role for the first time, you were even less prepared than the people you have around you. So it's very interesting to understand that part, and I think, and I'm just in that moment.
excellent. Makes sense. Makes sense. The next question I have here is probably it's probably a cheat sheet.
Okay.
What do you look for if somebody fresh out of university was to come into your office next week looking for a job? What are you looking for or what would you look for in somebody that's coming to work in your company? What key skills would you be looking for?
I will look for a person who has responsibility of their selves, a person with a very service attitude, because in the business world, we need to be aware of, we have to service people to transform their lives. I look for some person who is aware of the status it has or they have in that moment. Many of the companies are looking for people with experience or with big careers, with big grades or an honor diploma. I don't need that. I prefer person who have values. I prefer a child or a young child who has really that challenge and that fears inside, that they want to come out and do anything on the world. I think if we found uh, people who really wants to change their own world, I think that's the most important thing I look in a young person who is coming out of university at this time.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I've one more question, Alejandra, and thank you so much for doing this, and especially for your openness and honesty on your career and the personal side of your career as well. But if you could go back and meet yourself for a coffee when you were 17 years old, and you had 5 minutes to give her all the advice you could give her, knowing what you do now, what would you say?
At that time, I will say to her, please go to your family business and please learn since now what they are doing. Please understand that being in insurance sector is the most beautiful thing you're going to ever learn in your life. So I will tell her, do it now. Do it now.
Brilliant. And on that note, I want to say thank you very much again. It was lovely to meet you. And I hope we keep in touch. And thank you, everybody. You can stay on, Alejandra, for 2 minutes. I'll just stop the recording. Thank you.
Yes, thank you too.